Hey, and welcome to building a birthday reminder application with React.js. In this tutorial, we're going to code a React application from scratch. Next, we're going to consider a wonderful testing strategy for our application. And finally, we're going to implement a single test that's going to provide us a ton of coverage on our web application. My name is Nikolai Advolatkin, and on this channel, I help SDEVs all over the world build, test, and deploy applications in a continuous manner. If you want more amazing content like this, be sure to smash the thumbs up button so that I continue creating content for you. So grab your computer, grab your coffee, and let's do this. All right, so you ready to get started? Let me put on my magical coding glasses and let's begin. So the code base that we are going to be working on is going to be coming from this project right here. You can see it's a fork of this other project that has a bunch of React web apps, and we're building on top of those by teaching about how to test and deploy them. We're going to be working on this birthday reminder. There are two folders here. There's a setup folder and there is a final folder. The final folder is basically what the code is going to look like at the end, and the setup folder is what you're going to be working from. It's a blank folder to get you started, and it's going to have some boilerplate code in there, and then we are going to code out the rest. So let me show you exactly what that looks like. So of course, first step, you're gonna git clone. You can, if you want, you can fork my project and then do a git clone. And once you have that down, you'll navigate to the final directory. So I'm just gonna do that, and then I'm gonna do an npm install and start so that we can see what the final version of the application will look like. All right, so there it is. You can see our application is running, of course, on localhost 3000. And this is what it looks like. It shows the birthdays that we have today, the people whose birthday it is, and if you press the clear all button, it clears all of the birthdays. That's really about it. The app is super simple. However, we have to get started with somewhere simple and build up, and along the way we're going to figure out not only how to code it, but also how to test it. So now that we know what the application looks like, let's go ahead and implement it together, and then afterwards we're going to talk about the testing strategy. So I'm going to kill this over here, and you're going to follow along with me. So you're going to navigate one root up, you're going to navigate into setup, and that's where we're going to be working from. Also, I am going to change to a new branch. We're gonna work from birthday tutorial, and if you want to follow my commits, you'll see those in that branch. So obviously we have the source folder. If you're in setup, you'll also need to do an npm install. While that installs, we can talk about in app.js. You can see there's nothing here except this h2 that says reminder project setup. In this data.js, you'll see it's just an array of metadata about each one of our users. Just again, keeping it simple, not needing to pull it from anywhere right now. Our index CSS already has all the styling, right? We don't want to spend hours putting together all the styling for our application. So it's already here and ready for you. All we have to do is implement it. I'd rather spend more time actually implementing projects and less time worrying about CSS. In index.js, this is our entry point for our application. And then our list.js will contain the list of users, and we're gonna iterate over them and you'll see exactly what we're doing here. But in the meantime, everything should have installed, and if we do npm start, it'll pull up our app, and I am actually going to pull this out. We'll put this side by side with our editor so it makes life easier. And we'll put this over here just like that. So you can see what this is showing right now. It's just our app.js. It's just a simple pink background with a header that says reminder project setup. Let's go ahead and start coding. All right, so let's start doing some work on this application. We're going to start working out of app.js. Let me go ahead and close the window on the right just so you can see more space here. And we'll close this down here as well. So with that, we are going to get rid of this, and we will return a much larger block of code. And now we are going to add a main element. And why it's main, if we come into our index CSS, we'll see that the styling for the main component is over here. That's going to be the wrapper for our main portion of the application. And inside of that, we're going to have a section. And this section is going to get a class name. And that's going to be called container. So as soon as I save, you can see exactly what this looks like. Again, if we look at the index, find container, you can see that CSS styling for the container is right there. Inside of this section, which is the white part, right? What are we going to have in there? Well, we're going to have an H3. And that's going to display the amount of birthdays. So far, we're just going to do everything static and then make things a bit more dynamic. So we'll do something like this, save it, boom, see that come up right there. Next, we're going to import our list component. So you can see the import is already on top on line number 3. And that is going to be dynamically generated once we put the logic in there. So for now, that's all that looks like, because if we look at list, you can see that this is all it has for now. Next, we are going to add a button. So button, and then we're going to do an onClick method, right? What is it going to do on a click? So what is it going to do on click? For now, again, always keeping it simple, let's do an anonymous function. And that's not going to do anything. And instead, it's simply going to do a console log. Just like that. And let's give this button title. And save that, and boom, there is our button. And if we come here and inspect, scroll down, go over to the console and click it, you can see that it says clicked, because that was the method that we coded. By the way, if you're wondering how I quickly created an anonymous function, that was keyboard shortcut ANFN. So you can type this ANFN, And you can see it's an anonymous function, and then when I hit tab, I get this automatically generated. And that comes from, there it is, this extension right there. Beautiful. So app.js so far is up and running. Now let's go ahead and fill it with the actual users. All right, so next step, we're gonna work out of our list component. Our list component is going to contain all of the birthdays that are coming from data.js, right? So you can see it contains the name, the age, the image, and an ID. And this list is just going to basically iterate over all of that and list those components. So with that said, let's get rid of this heading, and instead we're gonna keep the fragment here. We are going to do a map, and actually what we'll want to do is inside of this list, we're gonna pass in an object that we're gonna call people, okay? Using this object, we are then going to do a map. And inside of there, we're going to do another anonymous function. And then we're going to map over a person. And for every single person, we can destructure that object. Have a deconstructed object, and it's just going to take in each of the properties of our person. So we got the ID. There you go. Next, we're going to want to return the component. That's going to be an article. And inside of that article, we are going to have an image. It's going to have a source of image. You can see automatically how those destructured properties are coming back here. Give it an alt. It's going to have the name of the person. Beautiful. And then below, and then we're going to add a div, and that div is going to have a h4, and that's going to be the name of the person. And then we're going to have a paragraph, and then that's going to say the age in years. Just like that. And then up here in the article, we definitely want to have a key for the map. So that's going to be the ID. And then we want to give it some styling, which is going to be person. So again, if we look at index.css and we look for, look for person, there is that styling for the person. Let's go back, let's save it and see exactly what that looks like. Oh, it failed. Let's see what's wrong here. And I think the reason for that is we haven't passed in any object to our list component, and so that's why it's undefined. And so now if we come back here, we can actually define it. So the very first thing we're gonna need is a destructured array. So let's do that. And that's gonna be people, set people, and that's gonna do useState. And it's gonna take in the data that we are getting from here. There you go. And then using this information, what we're going to want to do is obviously update this one to a dynamic value. So that'll just be people.length. So now we'll show that dynamically. And then our list, we're actually going to want to pass in the value of people. And that's going to be people. Beautiful. And I think that's correct. Let's give this a run, a save. Boom. There it is. There is our application. You can see exactly how it looks and how each of the components came into play from the list. So we've got everything wrapped in an article. Each one of these is an article. Inside of that, we have an image, and then we have the person's name, and then the age in years. All that's left is to actually make the button work, which currently is just console logging. Well, and making that happen is extremely easy, and it only takes a single method. So that's just setting the people, and inside of that, we are just going to pass an empty array, which is going to clear everything, right? So if we save that, and now we should be able to click this button, and you can see that now it says 0 birthdays. Today, obviously the counter being updated from this, the list of people values being passed in from here into here, and then the onClick is using the setPeople method from above, passing in an empty array. Our application is done. Now, how do we actually test it? So we now have our web application. It's there and ready. And the question is, well, how are we actually going to test it? What is the most optimal strategy? Our web application contains multiple components that need to be tested. There is, for example, the dynamic birthday counter that we coded in the logic for, that obviously needs to be correct. There's the clear all functionality of the button that needs to ensure that the list is clear. And then probably the most important part is the look and feel of the entire application on web. And obviously mobile is also important. So how are we going to test our application to ensure that everything is functioning as expected? So let's start working through the testing pyramid and see which approach makes sense. We're going to start at the very bottom, the unit test layer. Unit tests are really great for low-level types of tests, right? If you're having like functions to add integers, for example, or a function that performs some parsing of some data. Those types of tests are really good for unit tests. And honestly, for most React web applications, unit testing is rarely ever necessary unless you have some deep JavaScript logic that you need to test. So unit testing are not going to apply here because we're going to need too many unit tests, and also they're not the right use case here. What's likely better and more applicable for web applications, especially in React, are component tests. Component tests are a level higher. They ensure that the look and functionality work together, that the component that we created, such as the list component, is functioning correctly, tied to all of the backend code. So if we had component tests, we could have a component test for a list, and then that would ensure that when we pull in the data from the data.js, that it's being correctly pulled in and displaying the correct counter. We could also have a component test for the button and ensure that when we do the onClick method, that the button performs the correct operation. But what about the look and feel of the application? How do we check that that is working and looking correctly? We could definitely move up another level into end-to-end tests. right? End-to-end test makes sure that everything from the DOM to the database is behaving correctly. We can, click a button using an end-to-end test and ensure that when the button is clicked, it's actually clearing all of the functionality. However, still, how do we ensure the visual correctness of the application? And what if I told you that there was a really cool strategy that we can use? Is going to be 2 validation points in a single test, and we can ensure 100% working functionality of our application. Let's go and make it happen. All right, so we actually no longer need to show the application here. So we're just gonna go ahead and stop it so that we have full screen. And the technologies that we are going to use for our testing is WebDriver IO and Screener. So we're actually going to perform a visual end-to-end test that's going to allow us to render the entire application, make sure that it looks correctly, and then we're gonna clear the entire list and make sure that that looks correctly. And with those 2 validation points, opening the application, make sure it's in the right state, clearing the button, make sure that it's in the right state, will ensure 100% coverage of our application and leave us knowing super comfortable that nothing is wrong with our app. So let's go ahead and get started installing the code. So we're gonna do npx wdio, and let me make sure I'm in the right directory first. So let's cd to 1, and then we're gonna cd to setup, and then we'll do npx WebDriver IO like that. And then it'll take us through a super user-friendly installation process. It'll let us pick a bunch of dependencies. While it installs, I'll tell you a little bit about WebDriver IO. WebDriver IO is, as it says here, next-gen browser and mobile automation test framework for Node.js. It's really good for end-to-end testing with browser and mobile. So if you're looking for a solution that can tackle web and mobile at the same time, plus it has other capabilities like being able to plug in with visual end-to-end testing tools such as Screener, WebDriver IO is the right tool for you. So next, we're gonna answer a few of these questions. Where's the automation backend located? We are gonna be running in the cloud using Sauce Labs because Sauce Labs is integrated into Screener. We're gonna need Sauce Labs. I have an account. If you don't, definitely go ahead and sign up at saucelabs.com. Grab your free account there, and I'll show you how to set up that. So it's already asking me about the environment variables for my username and access key for Sauce Labs. And yes, mine are saved in Sauce username and access key in my bash profile, just like that. No, we don't want to run headless tests. In which region? We're going to do US. Which framework? Mocha is fine. There's also Jasmine and Cucumber options. No, we don't have a compiler. Our specs located. Yup, default. I'm just hitting enter for most of these. Yeah, let's have WebDriver IO generate some test files for us just so we can look at exactly what those look like. Page objects, no thank you. That's way overkill for our testing purposes here. Spec reporter is totally good. And then the services that we're going to install. Sauce service. We don't need the Chrome driver service. Chrome driver service is for running tests locally, unnecessary for our purposes because we're only going to be using a single visual end-to-end test to tackle all of our problems. And then I'm going to hit enter here, base URL. And installing. I don't know what it is about typing on camera. You guys make me nervous whenever I have to type on camera. I forget how to type. Okay, beautiful. So it says successfully set up our project. All right, in birthday reminder setup. Let me just show you a few of the things that were added. Package.json was obviously updated with WebDriver IO. We also got the config for WebDriver IO, and we got an example test here. Let's actually open that up, that we can see what that looks like. It's a very simple test, navigates to this URL, and then looks like it logs in. Let's actually give it a run using npm run wdio, and we'll see exactly what that looks like. So there it is starting up. Let me pull up Sauce Labs here. All right, so we see that a minute ago, I had this test executed called my login application, and we can open it up. And the coolest part is just running the video and seeing exactly what happened. So there it is. There is our functional end-to-end test. So we know our environment is set up. The next step we actually need to do is set up Screener so that we can do visual end-to-end testing instead of functional end-to-end testing. So let's talk about the configuration for WebDriver IO and how to integrate it with Screener. So at the very top, I've set up a visual options object, and that's taking in an API key and a project name. The API key is coming from Screener. I'll show you in a moment. And the project name basically just corresponds to the project that we're working on, and I named it birthday reminder. We also have sauce options here as well, and those are also taking in a username and access key. You can see I have 3 environment variables here. If you want to get your environment variables in account user settings, you'll find your username and access key for sauce, and Screener, which is our visual end-to-end testing tool. Once you log in and then you go to your account and click my API key, you'll get that API key as well. Save them all to your bash profile, and now we can easily do CI/CD and testing on our machines. A bunch of this was already here. I just cleaned it up some more. You can actually even see in my diff what I've changed. Just cleaned it up, made it less verbose. There's a bunch of descriptions that were in the WebDriver IO config to show you everything that was going on. But the most important components are this service portion that I added. This allows us to create a secure connection from the Screener cloud to our local machine, right? Our application is running in localhost, and so they need to be able to talk to each other to perform the appropriate validations. So I enabled that service here. I added these capabilities to be able to point to the Screener hub. And finally, I have an array here that will allow me to run across as many browsers and operating systems as I want. Currently, I have it set to desktop. This one is the most popular desktop resolution currently, and so I set it to that resolution, set it to run on Chrome, Windows 10 and latest, and then passing that viewport size. We can add more of these capabilities to run across more browsers and operating systems, and of course we can also change this part up if we want. So that's the configuration. What does the test actually look like? Let's come back to the test. Instead of showing me, let me show you that here. Here's what the test actually looks like. It uses the standard describe it format. I'm saying describe my birthday reminder app, that it should look correctly. Next, we're navigating to a URL. Here I'm not specifying anything because the base URL is set in WebDriver IO config. Let me show you where that's set down here. Next, we're having an init command. By the way, all of this documentation is available here in docs, visual end-to-end docs. You can follow along there. It'll help you get set up. But of course, I'm here to explain as well. This will just basically start the execution for the test. And then this is one of the most important pieces, is capturing the snapshot. So here I am capturing a snapshot and calling it the default state because this is initially when our application opens. Next, after it opens, I am going to click on our button. What I've done here too is add a data test ID attribute to make our button more unique. And so in order for this to be possible, we have to come back to app.js, and in our button, we're gonna add a data test ID attribute, calling it clear. So now our button has this unique test ID that we can use for our identification purposes, and we're gonna click it. So now that obviously clears our application, and then we're going to capture another snapshot of the app, and then we are going to end our test and ensure that there were no messages coming back in our results object. Let's give this a run, and I think you'll understand exactly what's happening. Let me pull up the terminal here. So we are just going to do npm run wdio. It's going to start up here. If I didn't break anything, it's gonna start running. I think it's already running, but give it a moment. All right, there it is. It's executing. Let's come back to Screener, and what we'll see here in our birthday reminder, we're gonna see that currently there is a session being executed. It's running on this resolution. Here's some information about it, and in a moment, I'll show you what comes out of this. I made a quick error. There should be 2 new states. Let me show you what happened. See how here it can't click on element data test ID because it wasn't found. What I did was I actually modified the wrong app.js. So we're gonna grab this and put it in the right app.js in the setup folder here. There you go. And now we're gonna add that button, which is exactly what's running. Save that. Now rerun these tests, and we'll be back in a moment. All right, there it is. 2 new states just came in for our application. What does that actually mean? Well, let's open it up and see what happened. Look, here you'll see that on this resolution, Chrome 95, Windows 10, I have my birthday reminder app. This birthday reminder app has a default state. If we open it up, we see our birthday reminder app here. How does it look? It looks absolutely perfect. We have the correct amount of birthdays. We have all the right people, and all the styling is absolutely correct. That is the best and most powerful thing about visual end-to-end testing, is that we can capture the state and the look of the entire application in a single command. And so that's exactly what we did here. And so we validated anything that we could have possibly needed to validate in this default state, right? And so this looks good. We are going to accept this. This will be used as a future iteration of our new code. And the next state is the only other possible state of our application, which is the cleared state. And so you remember I pressed the clear all button, and this looks absolutely correct here as well. So not only do we know that the clear all button functions correctly, which we could have done with a number of types of tests, this test also ensures that our application looks good as well. All of this logic here is correct, and so we can accept this as well. And now what this means is that any future iteration of our tests against our application will validate against these baselines and check, hey, does this look correct or has something changed? In fact, if we wanted to make a change, let's say we went into data.js, and doesn't matter. Let's remove our very first element. Save that. Of course, now we're not gonna have 5, and we can run our tests. Actually, let's look at our application first. Look, it only has 4 people now, right? And so if we rerun our tests, let me show you exactly what this will tell us. Think about it. If we're rerunning our test and it's comparing to the baseline, which functionality has changed and which functionality remains the same? Well, the clear all remains exactly the same, so that test is going to pass. And then the default state, that part has broken, and we know we've broken it, so we'll see that in a visual test in a moment. There it is, check it out. Exactly as I mentioned, one changed, one accepted. Let's review what's changed. See that? Look, it's identifying exactly what happened. One element removed, and this of course has changed the text. And so now we determine, is this correct state of our application, or did we introduce a bug? In this case, we introduced a bug. This is rejected. And now we need to go and fix our application and ensure that it's looking and functioning correctly. So thanks so much for joining me for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed building and testing a birthday reminder application. I've been Nikolai at Volodkin, and I've got a challenge for you before you go. Let's try and get this video to 150 likes. And if we do that, I will go ahead and create a tutorial around building and testing a cryptocurrency application. So if you enjoyed this content and you want to see me build that application, go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. And if you want to be notified of future video tutorials, hit the subscribe button. And finally, if you want to learn something specific around React, building applications and testing them, comment down below and I'll be sure to bring those tutorials to your YouTube feed. Thanks again. Have an amazing day. See you next time.